Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic, where each episode is graded like a school project, starting with 100 points, taking away 1 point for each error. Today's episode is Heart of Glory. Bad Klingons try to take over the Enterprise. The first point is lost because you don't know which neutral zone they're talking about. There must be hundreds in the Federation. If you're new to this channel, still screenshots are used extensively to prevent copyright claims. Geordi says, I number 1. Personally, I think they should separate, but I don't get a vote. Picard is the only one that braces for warp speed. Geordi says, I number 2. Tasha and Data both find evidence of explosions, but no remains of the destroyed Klingon ship, so minus 1 more point. Data says the vessel they found is doing a Tokyo drift. Tasha says, I number 3. Minus 1 point for reused footage of Data and Geordi. They use this one every time. Geordi says, I number 4. Data says it's the Batress, but they don't search for its flight plan. Minus 1 point. Isn't everybody a long way from home if you're in space? Worf says there's a lot of radiation on that ship. Tasha looks so excited when Captain Picard says he only wants the boys going over to the other ship. Tasha says, I number 5. It's time to drink. This captain's log makes it about 2 days before when the bow breaks. Minus 1 point for not bringing security. Picard just wanted Tasha to stay. They say, let's be ready for anything. Worf said there was radiation there, so minus 1 point for not having radiation suits. Minus 1 point for beaming out in one position and arriving in another. Minus 1 point for not bringing a doctor. Tasha says, I number 6. Minus 1 point for black paper on the panels to cover the glare. How does Picard not realize he's looking at a human figure? And it's obvious that's his body double, so minus 1 point. Shout out to first season designers having different characters for each culture they come upon. Tasha poses like Peter Pan. Minus 1 point, this is obviously Data's double. Minus 1 point for Data having an aura around him. If Geordi sees that around all androids, he should be able to see that in and around the future ones too, shouldn't he? Riker is right, they're wasting too much time. Deuterium gas could probably kill him. It's a good thing they brought all that safety gear, isn't it? While they're making this pointless argument, minus 1 point for not keeping a constant transporter lock on them in case something happens. Minus 1 point for no dead bodies found. The ship is going to explode in 5 minutes, but they just putter around, don't they? Minus 1 plot device point. The transmitter goes out right before they meet the Klingons. Minus 1 point for too many of these tubes hanging around. This one was obviously placed by the set designers. More unique Tyrellian lettering. Minus 1 plot device point for the Klingons not responding. Chorus says he'll handle the formalities later. Right now they just need to get off the ship. Tasha says, I number 7. Tasha is on the bridge at the security position. Now Tasha is in the transporter room. Minus 1 point for getting there too fast, and minus 1 point for no transporter operator to be there in the first place. Look closely, Riker, Data, and Geordi all move, so minus 1 point. Or it is possible to be knocked around while transporting on an exploding ship. Minus 1 point, Picard did not appoint someone in charge. All the senior officers are off the bridge in a hostile area, minus 1 point. He could have put Deanna in charge, but she's not on the show, minus 1 point. And Wesley's not on the show either, so minus 1 more point. Minus 1 point for a single set of turbolift doors. Worf says, I number 8. They're thinking, how did a Klingon get on a Federation ship? While Picard's thinking, how would the captain of the Klingon Defense Force end up on a Tyrellian ship out here? Conmel has an enlisted uniform, so minus 1 point. They are very skilled at BSing their way through. While Picard is thinking, weren't you in charge of the old school Starfleet? Picard asks, was it the second baseman? But Cora says, no, it was the third baseman that attacked us. One thing you never learn on Star Trek, how fast is subspace radio? Of course the answer is, whatever works for the script that week. Picard says Tyrellian, so minus 1 point.
That was the Tyrellian ship so far, of course.
Minus 1 point for jabbing something into his neck. That'll go straight to your brain and cause a lot of problems. The Enterprise replicator is very well stocked.
All my breed key amphibians.
He mentions human Starfleet vessels here. Either these are very old school Klingons or just total jerks. Dr. Crusher swears. So the goal of a good warrior is to show who can eat more than the others. And it looks like Worf won. Minus 1 point for poor prosthetics. Chorus says his body is only an empty shell now and to treat it as such, while Beverly is thinking, how much money can I make on eBay selling that Klingon uniform to a Trekkie? Worf tells his backstory. However, it turns out he was kidnapped by a Starfleet officer and raised illegally instead of being turned over to the Klingon authorities. This is an 80s show, years before the term inclusion meant to promote racism. Worf's backstory really doesn't change much over the seasons, does it? Is hardly none a double negative? Chorus starts to sing The Gambler. Chorus tries to recruit Worf, but I don't think it's gonna work. These Klingons probably would have been renegades in the old school system too. This girl's skirt is way too short, and -1 point for Worf taking Klingons through engineering. Worf tells them to give up on their delusions. Klingon says they have the bad guys on the ship. Deck 17 is where you get on the battle bridge. Tasha says, I number 8. Look close, she waits for the security guard to go with her. And there he is on the right. This is a beautiful screenshot of Tasha and her squad. -1 point here. The turbolift says that's deck 21, not 17. So I am using the DVD set of the Next Generation. If you want to help me get the remastered Blu-rays for sharper images, click that like button, the share button, and that subscribe button. Now Worf Klingon explains to Tasha. The two Klingons are placed in security. They're outnumbered 500 to 1, and they're thinking, we can take them. Worf says, I love you. Picard says, I know. Reuse footage, -1 point. -1 point, they are not speaking correct Klingon in this episode. -1 point for a visible boom mic over Worf's head. Klingons would not have a Federation symbol on their screen, so -1 point. Shout out to Worf's speech, asking for the criminals to die on their feet like real Klingons. Worf is usually a more honorable Klingon than nearly all the Klingons he ever meets. Tasha says, I number 9. The Klingon theme has always been the best of them all. -1 point for being a cheap and flimsy looking disruptor. -1 point for security having his back to the door. -1 point for the Klingons not taking Ramos's phaser, but then he drops it and picks up the disruptor. Look closely, this Klingon is still breathing. Is this the only time Tasha gets to go on a chase? She says Conmel is dead, but we saw him breathing, so -1 point. Tasha says, I number 10, we get to drink again. Now the two captains go on a pissing match. -1 point, these two girls haven't moved in an hour. Now all the engineers are behind him. Not one of them tackled him and knocked him to the ground, so -1 point. -1 point, there's nobody in here. Tasha says, do not, just like Data would.
We do not have a clear field of fire.
Worf volunteers to talk him down. Chorus isn't even an old school Klingon, he's just a troublemaker that likes to blow up stuff. So is Kling a city on the planet Kronos, or is it another Klingon planet? We never really find out. -1 point for nobody just beaming him out. Worf and Chorus battle each other with Klingon poetry. Now Worf says living among these humans has sucked. And they're like, did he just say what I think he said? Worf says, I'm sick of the poetry, I'm just gonna shoot you instead. Glass would not shatter like that just by falling on it, so -1 point. Worf yells louder than when his own girlfriend Kalar was killed, how sad. Picard forgot the other Klingon's name. Worf says they died like Klingons. Aww. Klingon says dispose of the bodies as you see fit. Picard is thinking, we can sell the uniforms to Trekkies on eBay, and Dr. Crusher can do medical experiments on the bodies in her lab like she's always wanted to. Klingon offers Worf a job and invites him to play in the Klingon treehouse for a while. Worf says he is honored, but Klingon ships don't have holodecks. Geordi says I number 11, and Geordi says I number 12. -1 point for the way this ending played out. Picard's comments seem to be dismissive and rather awkward towards Worf. Picard and Riker both perform the Picard maneuver, and they fly off into space. Heart of Glory, where we really learn how passionate Worf is about being a Klingon, gets a score of 56. Yes! Now, who were the Klingons? Dennis Madalone is a stuntman and we will see him a lot more. Brad Zerps found a career behind the camera. Robert Bauer has 30 screen credits and he loves stargazing. David Froman was Native American from the Miami and Peoria tribes, spent years on the Edge of Night and Matlock. Charles Hyman has 23 screen credits including Tour of Duty. Vaughn Armstrong played Chorus. We'll see him again on Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise as Admiral Forrest. That's it for now. Please be sure to leave comments below, click that like button, the share button, and that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.